During a congressional hearing, Hegseth was asked whether the Pentagon has plans to take Greenland and Panama by force. Any normal defense secretary would immediately say, "No, that's absurd, and it would violate international law." Not Hegseth. He shrugged and said something like, "We have plans for everything. Let that sink in." The man overseeing the most powerful military in history casually confirmed that the U.S. is planning contingencies to invade 2 sovereign nations, one of which, Greenland, is part of Denmark, a NATO ally. And he said it like ordering lunch, not discussing war.
Mr. Chairman, just on the budget point, I made this point before the committee, before the House just passed a budget that adds nearly $3 trillion to an already out-of-control debt. So if we do really want to spend money on defense or anywhere else, we ought to be willing to pay for it. And I just, certainly go back through generations of, bipartisan problems with this. You can't have a debt that size and keep coming back talking about how much money you're going to spend, whether it's defense or whatever your priorities are. And Mr. Secretary, you said the 99% down on border crossings and the border is secure. At the same time, we're going to take $1 billion out of the MILCON budget, out of building barracks, to send it for the border. And there's another 4,000 troops that we're planning on sending down to the border. Given that the border is secure, might you rethink that spending?
Well, sir, we are securing it. It is secure, but it's a manpower-intensive effort at the beginning.
Two different words there. It's either secure or secure. And it sounded to me like you said it was secure.
It is secure.
Okay.
What we're continuing to do is expand that and fortify it through infrastructure, which is a big part of the budget on the Department of Homeland Security side as well. So it's that $1 billion you're talking about was from the CR in FY25. We fully fund that back and more in FY26 with a recognition that we were dealing with the world as it existed when we came in. And the previous administration said they needed new legislation to secure the border. It turns out you just needed a new president.
I would point out that
with
you
the
have not
Defense Department and
submitted,
DHS that was willing to go to the border and actually secure it, which is what we
not submitted a budget yet. So whether or not you're putting that money back in remains to be seen. You have definitely taken it out. And I think the obsession there, and I don't disagree, the border needed to be secure. But from a pure budget standpoint, let's just not keep the political focus on that. Let's make sure that we're funding some of the other priorities that we have. So when it comes back to acquisition reform, and the chairman's point, it's our committee, certainly Congress is part of the problem. We set up a lot of requirements. Defense contractors are part of the problem. I'm curious, how would you get after reforming the culture at the Pentagon so that you can move faster, number one, and number two, how would you get after the defense contractors that push the requirements process? And specifically, what would you do about the requirements process to try to speed things up?
Well, first of all, I think gold plating is a real problem. Sir, I mean, across the department.
Interesting to use the word gold in this particular context, but yes, I agree with you, actually.
We maybe could use a little bit more silver plating on occasion. A recognition that the 99% solution is oftentimes the enemy of the 85% solution that delivers 2 years sooner. And that's contractors and other companies wanting to do right, but trying to do too much and overpromise, and then they're under-delivering, and the warfighter
not always wanting to do right. In some cases, just
not always,
just wanting to make money.
So,
but yes,
the change is also in acquisitions about people. You need reformers in these positions. I'm here to be a disruptor of those processes. Our deputy secretary has extensive business experience. The types of people we're bringing in as undersecretaries have been disruptors and innovators in the private sector who recognize that bureaucracy can be dysfunctional and needs to be disrupted. So it's taking outside-the-box unique approaches. I mean, virtual design is a big example. How many times are we going to build something physically that takes a year to build when you could use AI and computing power, design it virtually, identify the flaws and move more quickly, or create open architecture so you can move.
Our committee stands ready to work with you.
I mean, there's 500 different things we can do, and we're doing them.
Yeah, and I'm sincerely concerned about this. Is it the policy of the Department of Defense that we need to be prepared to take Greenland and Panama by force if necessary? Is this a policy that you have within the Department of Defense in accordance with the President's wishes?
I heard what you said about those two countries and saying we need to worry about China. Well, we are worried about China.
That wasn't my concern.
China's malign influence in Panama.
I was
the
concerned
recognition
with
that
us
if China has
saying
control of
that
the
using
ports
military
or
force
malign
to take
influence
another
over the
sovereign
Panama,
country's
we
territory.
should pay attention to that.
Right.
So Panama is very key terrain that we've focused on, and we've been willing to focus
So we
on,
should
as
take it.
is Greenland
We should
key
take
terrain.
it by military force. They're important. I'm not going to argue with that.
The Arctic is
I'm
incredibly
arguing with
important,
the
and
using
adversaries are
our
trying to
military
gain-
to take it by force.
Our job at the DoD is to have plans. And
Do you have a
lot-
plan for that?
Our job at the Defense Department is to have plans for any particular contingency.
Including the contingency of basically invading
Any
Denmark.
contingency you need, we've got it. We've got a building full of planners, and we're prepared to give recommendations whenever needed.
So just be clear, you have plans to take Panama and Greenland by force if necessary.
I think the American people would want the Pentagon to have plans for any particular contingency.
Not
and
for that
thankfully,
one,
we
in
are
my
in the
opinion.
planning business.
Speaking on behalf of the American people, I don't think the American people voted for President Trump because they were hoping we would invade Greenland. I'm going to go out on a limb on that one. I yield back.
Before we dive in, hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe. This conversation is about the future of our country, and your voice matters. You know, there comes a moment where outrage isn't optional, it's a duty. And today, that moment has arrived. Because what we just heard from Pete Hegseth, Trump's defense secretary, isn't a gaffe, a joke, or political theater. It's something darker, something dangerous, and every American who still believes in democracy needs to call it out right now. Let that sink in. The man overseeing the most powerful military in history casually confirmed that the U.S. is planning contingencies to invade 2 sovereign nations, one of which, Greenland, is part of Denmark, a NATO ally. And he said it like ordering lunch, not discussing war. Republicans might claim this is normal contingency planning. And yes, the Pentagon always maps scenarios. But what's not normal is putting it on the record and normalizing the idea of invading friendly nations. That's not strategy, it's hubris. And it reveals a lot about Trump's Pentagon. This is the same worldview that once seriously suggested buying Greenland. When the sale idea failed, the fallback seems to be invasion. Meanwhile, Hegseth's Pentagon hasn't submitted a defense budget on time, continues to fail audits, and is cutting funding for troop housing. But they still have time to game out taking over foreign territory. This is dysfunction masquerading as strength. It's the militarization of fantasy, a government consumed by image and ideology while forgetting governance. And here's the scary part. Conservatives often cheer this on as being prepared. But patriotism isn't cheering for your country to invade its allies. Real patriotism follows principles, not men. The principle here is simple. Sovereignty matters. International law matters. Democracy matters. When we justify preemptive invasions under preparedness, we stop being a republic. We become the empire our founders warned against. Hegseth's comments might sound abstract, contingency planning, strategic options, but the language of militarism always starts abstract. It hides until it's too late. That's how we got Vietnam, Iraq, and so many unnecessary wars. The difference now? The veil is gone. They say it openly, live on TV, and the right's reaction is silence. That silence normalizes conquest. Under Trump's Pentagon, the line between defense and aggression isn't blurred, it's erased. And this isn't hypothetical. This is the same administration that diverts funds from troop housing and mismanages procurement while sitting in hearings, planning invasions. That's not strength. That's ego. That's power masquerading as preparedness. And the moral danger is real. When the military serves the ego of one man instead of the nation, democracy is at risk. This isn't partisan. It's about the rule of law. If you believe in democracy, sovereignty, and international order, you should be alarmed. Normalizing talk of invasion erodes everything America claims to stand for. It sets a precedent that militarism trumps law, diplomacy, and common sense. Real strength doesn't come from imagining wars. Real strength comes from caring for our troops, fixing corruption in defense contracting, and using diplomacy before aggression. That's how we protect Americans, allies, and the values we claim to defend. So when Hegseth says, we have plans for every contingency, here's my response. The contingency we need to plan for is Americans waking up. Patriotism means moral courage, asking hard questions, and refusing to let our military be hijacked by delusion and ego. This moment is a warning. Militarism, normalized in language, becomes policy. Authoritarian tendencies don't arrive with tanks. They arrive with casual comments like these, shrugged off by the people who should oppose them. If we don't pay attention, it becomes precedent, and history shows us how badly that can end. We must draw a line. We cannot allow the Pentagon to act as an instrument of personal ambition. Democracy requires that our military serve the people, not the whims of one president. That's what being a liberal patriot means. Standing up for our principles, even when it's uncomfortable. So don't scroll past this. Share this video. Comment below. Subscribe. The louder we are, the harder it becomes for anyone to normalize this kind of militarism. The Pentagon doesn't need more power. It needs more accountability. And Americans need to remember, the military protects our nation. It doesn't serve personal ego. That is patriotism. That is democracy. That is what it means to truly love America. Because make no mistake, invading Greenland isn't patriotism. Weaponizing imagination isn't strategy. Normalizing aggression is not leadership. And staying silent is complicity. We can be better than this. We must be better than this. And the time to speak up is now.